My name is Francisco Dictado, and I am a father first and a real estate broker second. Typical Filipino, right? Like when I was growing up, all the professionals that I was around or that I saw, my aunts, uncles, close family friends, and they were all nurses or worked in the healthcare industry. Maybe they were in medical billing, maybe they were CNAs, pharmaceutical techs, whatever it was. They were in the hospital culture, some form or another. I think what was most important for my family was that we all had jobs and that we could support and take care of ourselves. Coming from the Philippines and immigrating here, they always wanted to make sure us kids could be self-sustaining and could survive in this environment. So yeah, I mean, my first thought was go to school, go to college, and be a nurse. And you know, to make my parents happy, I did about 75% of that. You know, worked in the hospital as a surgical technician, became a medical sales rep. You know, after all those years of putting in work and going to school and taking classes and getting to a point where I felt like I was on a level playing field with everybody else, I had to go. And it just wasn't for me because I realized that a lot of things in this world are driven by money, and it didn't feel good, and I didn't want to sell myself out. So I left and went full steam ahead with real estate, and my mantra has always been, let's help people, let's give them a great experience and share the knowledge that I've accumulated with them, and hopefully see them succeed and grow their portfolios in real estate so they can live fun, fruitful lives in the future. My dad is from Pangasinan, and my mom is from Ilocos Norte. And my dad came here first, and I want to say he came in the late 70s, just after I think the Supersonics won their one and only championship. He came here with his brother. I think they were probably 18 years old-ish. We come from a farm. Like he had 8 brothers and sisters, I believe, but they lived in a third world country on a farm, so very remote. And my uncle is the one that got us here. He worked in the Navy, so he petitioned for all of his siblings and parents to come to America. So my dad and his brother, I believe, were the first ones of the family to make it over here along with my brother. And their first trip out of the farm, out of the country, 16, 18-hour flight from there to Seattle. Their layover was in Japan. They had a delay in their flight, so they had to stay the night, and they put them up in a hotel in Japan somewhere, don't know. And mind you, these guys are literally from the farm, FOB, if you will, right? And so they put him up in a hotel. My dad said that was the coldest night of his life. And I asked him why. And he said, because they slept on top of the bed. They didn't know that the covers, the bed is made, right, in a hotel. They didn't know to get under the covers to use the blankets. So they slept on top of the comforter and on top of the pillows that were covered. And they just didn't know. But that goes to show you like how far removed they were from like what they were gonna get into in the States. I know they came for opportunity. I don't know that they knew what they were getting themselves into. They came for that, and they built a fantastic foundation for us and my generation. Because of their hard work, we're able to pursue things that we like and we love in our lives. And I don't think they had that luxury when they came over here. You know, I thank them for giving us and sacrificing what they did so we could actually do what we love and not what we have to do. My dad worked his ass off, just worked his ass off, like literally, 2 or 3 jobs until he got to a point where he could afford to bring me and my mom here. Then they bought a house as a family in West Seattle where I think every sibling lived. In that one house in West Seattle, there was probably 3 or 4 different families there at one point. But for me as a kid, growing up with all of my cousins was the best. It was the most fun place to be. Every weekend there was a party or a gathering, just because that's how we did it as a family. After work, all the kids would get dropped off at my grandma and grandpa's house because all the parents were going to work. And that's what they did, they worked. And so all I did was play with my cousins all day, 5 days a week. And so for me growing up, that was great. It was fun. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I didn't see anything wrong at all or any imbalances in the way I was being brought up. Later down the road, I noticed that just working is not the healthiest thing for you. What makes me Filipino? That's a great question. Very deep, man. I think what makes me Filipino is, I think my adoration for my family and the importance of always helping and taking care of my family. I think that at a very early age was very evident, and it's all we had when I was younger. I didn't know anything else. And so I think as Filipinos, as you can see, we're very empathetic. I think to be a nurse, you have to have a certain level of empathy to be very good at it. And I think somehow, some way, innately Filipinos are good at that or have that, that trait within them. I've always been family first. To me, that's a very Filipino thing, but maybe not. I think most cultures are that way, but that's just what I associate being Filipino with. And also, I really love eating, which I think we do very well. Like when we get together as a family, that's Filipinos and the generation I grew up in and the generation before me, I don't know were the best at communicating love, but they would show it to you by the way they fed you. I think the other thing is, somehow, some way, Imelda Marcos passed on the sneaker or the shoe gene to us, and I have a thing for sneakers and shoes that I think somehow she started. I came to America when I was 3 years old, and apparently when I came here I was fluent in Ilocano. It's all I spoke. And my parents, like I told you, all the kids got dropped off at grandma and grandpa's house in the morning, so all our parents go to work. My parents had to take me out of that and into daycare, I think like 2 or 3 times a week, just so I could get ready for school and learn how to speak English. Because I think when I got here, everyone was still speaking Ilocano, and so that's how we communicated. Not very much English in the house, so I went to daycare and learned English. But now, I can't speak fluently. I understand every word being told to me, but what's funny is I feel almost embarrassed to try and speak back in Ilocano now because I don't have the accent. Like I have to try very hard to get back that accent, and when I can't speak with it, I kind of feel like they can tell that I'm not really of this culture or heritage anymore. So I just choose to answer in English. Those are the deepest cuts when you get made fun of by a fellow Filipino. And you know, I've worked in the hospital industry, so I've been around a lot of them, and there's a lot of real heavy, fluent speaking Filipinos around. And you know, I feel like sometimes they try and test you to see just how Filipino you are. I've felt that, and it's been very, very hard to reconcile. So I just full steam ahead, man. I mean, my kids, they're not learning my language that I grew up with. I mean, they know what boto means, they know what pek means, yeah. They know what kili means, but yeah. They don't know. They don't know. How are you gonna fucking travel to the Philippines to only say those words? You can't. So yeah, they don't know it, but I guess that's part of this whole project. It is what it is, right? Like, we're invited here as a workforce. You know, just like how now so many companies have outsourced IT people or customer service people. Like when you call Xfinity, you hear a Filipino voice, right? So they've created a whole industry in the Philippines of great paying wages, great paying jobs, but this whole economy is always, it's trying to find the cheapest work. And when we were invited here in the 70s or 80s or even before that, I think that's how we were perceived and why we were here, why so many Filipinos are nurses, because I don't think that job many people want. But us coming here with somehow this inborn empathy or just patience or this wanting to serve, it fit our culture and our want to help people. And so that's why I think the nurse joke it's there for a reason. My kids are half white. Yeah, their mom is of Jewish descent. I think they need to know where their family has come so they can be proud of that. Where there's struggle, you can really figure out a path to success. And knowing, if my kids know what our family went through, to put them in this situation where they have the world as an oyster, I think it's meaningful. And nothing is just given to them. And I want them to always have that mentality of being hungry, of being the lion, right? I don't want my kids to ever feel like they've been giving something just because of who they are. I want them to know what it feels like to be proud of their work and to have earned the right to do certain things in this life. I think it's important to them, especially because my grandfather survived the Bataan death march, to understand just how fortunate and lucky they are to be where they are. If he doesn't escape the Bataan death march, me and the rest of my family are probably non-existent. One guy I'd love to meet just because I think he understands it and I think he gets it beyond everything else and all the entertainment he's involved in is Joe Coy. I'd love to have a conversation with him. I think he's on the verge of he is opening the door for so many other Filipinos right now. In that space of entertainment, with all the things going on socially, I think he gets it. And being a Filipino and opening doors for others is, I think, part of the job. I mean, all the jokes, like the first two specials, I feel like he was just making fun of me, right? But I mean, it's true. And I think comedians in general are great at storytelling and poking fun of just everyday life. I would love to honestly go back and talk to my grandfather more. You know, he died when I was, I think 10 or 11, one of those. And I just didn't understand things or see things the way I do now. And I'd love to know more of the history, more of what he went through to get to this point. Because now our family is all here, and it's just a huge feat to have done that. How do you walk away from the death march, right? How do you escape that? How do you survive that? And then to make it to America from a third world country on the farm, it's amazing to me. Just recently, they sold a property that they owned in the Philippines. Mind you, third world country, thousands of miles away. And that property that they sold got divvied up to all the grandkids in the family. And to me, that was amazing to have an inheritance that my grandfather at that time secured for us. Like, I'm so grateful for that. I think it would be interesting to sit down with Jose Rizal and hear what that whole era felt like, and to think about the different thoughts they were having when they're creating what they're creating. You know, how do you go from the ruins to a republic? I think it'd be pretty amazing to just have a conversation with him and see the resolve that they had. And also to share kind of how we have evolved in America. Mabuhay Filipinas!